So I'm here with Anne.Ishikawa today. We're going to go over the how our realm actually works, how the cosmic clock actually works, how these guides or spirit beings actually are connected with us, and you know the real template of I think how so many things of like astrology or are these galactics that are coming into certain peoples and stuff, how this whole system actually works, what I would call true nature of reality is, and kind of just awakening consciousness. So thank you, Anne, for being with me here today, and we're gonna get straight into it.
Well, great. Now, I was just going to correct you. We're going to try and give our perspective because at the end of the day, who the hell knows?
Of course,
We're all
I
just doing our best and we'll just give our current understanding. Because, speaking about the nature of reality, I do think that, well, for me anyway, my current understanding often changes in dramatic and profound ways.
Mhm.
And I realized that, one thing I believed 5 years ago, I'll tune into it and it's completely changed. And it's not that I was wrong 5 years ago. It's that it was healed, whatever I tuned into, healed or repaired, was repaired by our consciousness and by our awareness. And so it flipped.
Mhm.
And now that thing is no longer relevant or it doesn't exist anymore, and it should never have. So, they people think that psychics, whatever a psychic says today is true for all time. And it's not. And this triggers people because they think, oh, this psychic is just making excuses in case she's wrong.
Right.
And no, no, that's not it at all. I'm just doing my best. I don't claim to be right all the time, but I think we all have to remain open-minded and allow ourselves to change our minds. And it's really important to only ever take what resonates. So that's
Definitely.
my little sort of introduction to any talk or discussion on the nature of reality
Right.
is that what's true today may not be true next week because just talking about it, we could fix something. Because we are the reality programmers. We are, we incarnated here, we are the gods, we incarnated here, and we have authority in the realm we incarnated into. We have authority. However, we gave up our sovereignty, we gave up our authority. It was usurped, it was stolen, and so now something else is reality programming. Something outside of us is, took control of our reality, and now we're waking up to that and we're reclaiming it. And this is the basic nature of reality from my perspective. So it's up to us. We have the power, we have the authority. Um, and it's our magic. The words we speak are powerful. It's our magic, our thoughts, our intent. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot there. I think I 100% agree on that, where the nature of truth is, since we are in a programmable matrix in a sense, the nature of truth is ever changing and can be, m- uh, it's like a clay or a putty that can be molded and shaped into our reality. And it's, it's not as fixed and it can be changing. More things can expand into our awareness where we get different downloads, different understandings, different healings of things. And I think a very simple kind of 3D answer, the initial thing in the first part of that resonated with me was when I would be getting psychic attacked, I didn't know what to do. So I was just like, oh God, Jesus help me, Jesus help me. And then I would just connect to that egregore and then that would work to a degree, but then there's, different understandings, different evolution of what that really was and what that really means, sort of thing. And then that's like a very beginner sort of I guess, kind of understanding. And as you expand and then understand your consciousness, understand AI is another big one. Understand the, I guess, then the religion pill of understanding then like something on Buddhism is then, oh, like, oh, venerating, oh, like, oh, the Eastern culture figured everything out. And that's not exactly true. And then having then more awareness come to our perspective and then evolving from that. And then this essence of rediscovering yourself and then kind of unlocking these super abilities, becoming more psychic, kind of becoming more online. And then it always keeps expanding outward of this ever expanding realm and then reshaping reality from there. And kind of understanding, I think a huge element and something obviously you talk about on your channel, obviously, is how the realm is then corrupted. So this appeal to nature philosophy where, oh, these horrible things happen, so therefore it's just a part of reality, it just has to happen, is then a logical fallacy because it's an appeal to nature argument that's being presented and kind of wordy philosophy, but if we're in a, if we're in a matrix where we can program anything, that actually isn't true, where just because there's something that's occurring in nature, that doesn't mean it always has to be or always exist as a constant. We can reshape it to how we want it, and understanding healing and understanding kind of I guess what you could describe as, yeah, just healing, then those elements of reality can be reshaped and we can expand from that. And that's a huge understanding, I think, on a huge level of this non-appeal to nature argument and then healing and understanding that we're in a matrix and we are the gods. And that's a huge um, realization download that can then reshape your reality in a very malleable, positive way according to your life. So,
Well, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, the main point is that we are not helpless.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that feel, oh, I just want to get out of here. This is a prison planet. I'm done here. I'm never coming back. What
Hmm.
a shit show.
Right.
And some of those things are true. I don't think it's not so much a prison planet as a mind prison. We forgot who we are. We completely forgot who we are by a dark agenda. And as we awaken or remember or have the intent to seek out the truth of who and what we are, that's a journey of reactivating our abilities and earning new abilities and standing in our sovereignty and our power where we can go into this matrix and fix it because we have authority, because we can. And I don't say it's easy. I mean, I get slammed, I'm on the floor sometimes, it's not a bed of roses by any stretch of the imagination. It's a challenging journey. If you're psychic or if, as you activate your abilities, because you will be challenged both by the good guys and the bad guys. You will go through mystery schools to learn abilities, and some of them can be brutal, but obviously they're worth it. You get stronger and more power. You can do more.
Hmm.
Um, and so this is the journey of sovereignty, of remembering who we are and that we have authority in this realm. And it's us. It's us that are creating these changes. It's us that are creating the the new timelines. It's our consciousness. It's us. It's not the Galactic Federation of, unicorn light beings or whatever they are.
Yeah, the Palladians or the whole narrative. Yeah, I think dispelling that is a huge kind of it's a it's a big controversial thing, I think, in the space, but it's something that is needed
Yeah.
to be put into awareness because it's a false agenda essentially. It's a false agenda, or it's really how I see it, it's you're revoking authority to some sort of other council that's going to then decide stuff for you, and that's not really what's occurring. You
Well,
know.
we when we get incarnated here, when we incarnate, we get slammed with a lot of contracts and agreements that we
Mhm.
make with awareness and with, because we have no choice at the time, to get in here. And these are all cloaked. We can't see them. And so it's really important to earn decloaking abilities. Then you can see stuff. And it's important that you don't just rely on psychics, that you pay for sessions to decloak and tell you what you've got and help you do these things.
Mhm.
Although, you know, a session with a good psychic can be great, but you can, each and every person can do it themselves. You've just got to learn decloaking abilities. I have a few videos on my YouTube that help people get an awareness of the dark energies that decloak, that can be used for good or bad. And a lot of us have dark expressions that abused these cloaking energies. And with this awareness, you can revoke your hand in it, reclaim your stolen soul shards that are used in entities that are abusing this, or your dark expressions that are abusing this. And, this is how you reclaim your energies and earn more abilities and see more, decloak more. So this is a part of the game. It's a lot of inner work that you have to level up and step up yourself instead of relying on entities outside of yourself. Because every time you ask for help, part of my journey was I was left with nothing but my consciousness. All my guides turned out to be artificial sentiences. All my crystals and stones were possessed or cursed or, just real dark entities attached to them. So at the end of the day, I had nothing. I couldn't rely on anything. I didn't trust any of my spiritual entourage, didn't trust them at all, couldn't see them, couldn't decloak them. None of them were who they said they were.
Mhm.
And so all I had was my consciousness, and that was it. And so every time you ask for help, it's a higher self trade. And I wasn't aware of this, and I was asking for help, and I wasn't aware that these were trades. And I didn't know what I was giving up. I was giving up bits of my soul shards. People ask me, how do you lose soul shards? Well, that's one way. Doing higher self trades that you are unaware of, and you don't know what you're trading. And it's a real journey that can take months or years to reclaim what you gave up.
Yeah.
And then you have your expressions, not all human, unicorns, dragons, lions, that also are in trauma, that got captured, that had their soul shards stolen. And so then you start working on them as well as your current present self. So, we are multidimensional and there's a lot of work to do. Our souls are very fractured, but this is the game we're playing. And just with attention awareness and a lot of moving and breathing and push-ups, um,
Yeah.
we get there. And, my advice is move and breathe.
A
That's the best way to.
billion percent. I recently got back into doing qigong again and get got back into kickboxing, like more traditional martial arts, where it's like they're more like, contact based, where you're just hitting a bag, but you're still, a lot of and in Japanese it's called like kata. Like a lot of karate is more about the form per se than actually like brawling sort of fighting. That's more like a Muay Thai, different,
It's
different
a lot
martial
of
arts.
self-discipline.
But it's a lot of your consciousness is encased in your skin suit. So
Yeah.
it's very much I see it as a both element. And I think that's the stories told in the East. That's what the sentiment is massively being portrayed there, where they're doing like these hard rituals of like holding and balancing, buckets of water or like, training their hands, all these different techniques. Um, they're really healing their consciousness and they're fortifying their own mind and discipline and moving past something like the pain receptors. That can be, obviously it's like, okay, we're aware of something, but you're moving past these sort of limitations that the mind prison has kind of enforced on you, and really moving past that and understanding that your consciousness is really controlling it in the end of the day. And I think like another huge factor is like Wim Hof. Like he's someone who's proven in a very observable way where we're looking at like he can, you know, do the what's the fame the Himalayan mountains just in shorts, just with his own breathing techniques. So it's like,
Oh, Wim Hof is the Dutch guy, right? Who the breathing,
right, yeah, he's
you
like
go ice diving or something, diving in ice or something, and
yeah,
breathe
and
and
surviving the Iceman, right? So he can, and that's then another kind of story told in like the Indian monks or Chinese, all these people who practice these things. They are people who are doing these sort of things too, where they're doing breathing techniques to really transmute a lot of it. And I think a lot of it is the breath is huge. The breath is absolutely imperative that I've noticed. I mean, we could definitely go into like that's your lower dantian are connected to your chakras, connected to your lower chakras, literally sit in your where your diaphragm is and where your breath is, and having that movement of any kind is so important, I think, for this element of it. Um, and then also not to dissuade any of the meditation practices if you're doing qigong, if you're doing different types of yoga and stuff. Those are very important for fortifying your consciousness to allow it to be in a state where it can, I think, relax and heal. I think that's also a part of it because I think if we're so kind of bombarded with um, 3D life, when you're in those states, I've noticed that your mind can go to this place where it's very blank and you're just focused on the one task. So then you can really feel into stuff, and you can, most people I think are doing this unconsciously. They can really then relax and shut it down, shut down the the stressness, these fractals of ourselves that have been taken in this, and in an unconscious way can heal that then. So yeah, I think the breath control, breath work, all that stuff is very, very huge, and imperative for consciousness. And
yeah, and even
yeah.
if you don't know what you're healing, if sometimes I get blocked. I mean, usually I have I'm psychic, I can see, I can interact, and sometimes I'm completely shut down and blocked. So, what's my go-to? Well, it's not wine and chocolate. That's free advice. It is breathing. And even something as simple as just walking.
Yeah.
But breathing is it somehow is, very powerful to shift the energies of your source field. So I can't stress enough that, if ever you get slammed, just focus on, deep breaths and try and distract yourself.
hmm And singing too, I think also goes into that. I'm not a good singer, but I've been trying to do some singing, trying to get unlock those
Oh,
abilities.
humming and
Humming
singing,
is
awesome,
so,
especially if you've got sound and tone misalignments that
hmm
can happen in all sorts of time-space situations. Yeah, sounds and tones abuse. That's a big one. And humming
such a
and
big
singing
one.
is really good. And sometimes you can focus on just one note and you can hear the disharmony and misalignment in that tone and just keep up that one tone until you can feel it clear and then just go up and down the scale and see what you can kind of hear a metallic or a disharmonic in your own voice. And everyone can do this, just get good at working on yourself. Just get good at listening to your own voice. But yeah, sounds and tones, that's a big one.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually a perfect segue, I think, to go into then Tartaria and kind of what is actually mapping our realm if we really look at it if we look at the cosmic clock and the turtle and that symbolism there, if we're going then to how our frequency has been changed on the planet. Um, how our frequency's been changed on the planet, I think, is a very big one because, if we look at geometries, if we look at all these different things, there's a frequency in them. So if we're looking at the frequencies of, churches, if we're looking at frequencies of the buildings and geometry, I see that as a very similar sort of almost conversation where how geometry has been misshapen in our realm, and I guess what you could call like ley lines have been like redirected to reshape the matrix, kind of circling back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where our matrix isn't a set, it isn't set like we think it is, and we can be remolded with frequency. It can be reshaped through a vibrational lens. I think a lot of obviously like in this space, Tesla was a huge like element of that kind of consciousness in this sense that people kind of know about this from Tesla, and this type of idea is coming from that sort of idea, if anyone kind of knows about that. So the geometries of stuff like in Washington, D.C., or stuff like in certain objects in Europe, or all these different things, frequency's been changed and kind of reset the template of how the frequency on the planet's really been structured. It's really all frequency and vibration at the end of the day, and how critical that point is on the tones, singing, and being in a state in which you can think sort of clearly, but then understanding the geometries where you're in contact with geometries and you kind of run up against them and understand that they can be transmuted through singing and through frequency, I think is a huge awareness. I think for um, it's important for then this video to have that kind of, because then people could be psychic and they're going through stuff. And I think so many people get overwhelmed. I think so many psychics get overwhelmed, and they're not really understanding maybe what they're seeing or how to interpret how they see things. I think that was something that I went through, which was a huge part of it, where I would see all these images and I didn't know how to interpret it. And shifting just your voice, using your voice as a spell frequency to then shift the consciousness of if you're getting slammed with something, that's such a powerful way. Like it's like push-ups in the gym. Like that's one of your ways to like shift out of that slam, I think is a huge element, is the singing music element. Um, and I think that's where the power of mantras really come from, is having some sort of, and obviously everything can be coded in a negative or positive way sort of thing, but I think, and we see that unfortunately now with a lot of music, but I've seen it shifting. I've seen, at least in America, I've seen music being kind of shifted, and they've kind of, the spell's almost been broken on that sort of reality. And I see a lot of people, music's really kind of getting, I don't want to say getting better, but it seems like it's more cohesive, and consciousness is kind of shifting in some sense, where I'm seeing all these like independent artists coming up, and I'm like, I guess it's in my awareness now, but all these things are shifting, and I'm like, this kind of frequency where people are kind of, I think, really getting it on a different level, where okay, our vibration and the music we're listening to does shift things in a huge way. And um yeah, I guess where you want to take that sort of
Well, I'm so happy that you're in your awareness is coming into your awareness are the new independent artists that sound good. I haven't got that awareness yet. I just don't listen to any modern music. I
Yeah,
can't stand it. I mean, the odd song here and there, but
right.
basically, well, no. So I'm glad that it's coming into your awareness. Well done, you.
I've been having to fish for it. I've been searching a lot because it is like, it is ridiculous on, they have done so much to the music where the melody will be correct. Like if you played it on a violin, it would be correct, but then the lyrics are disharmonious and saying like this bad message, or this kind of, there's like this black magic message in it in a lot of music. But then if you literally take that music and put it into a classical template, it would be very interesting and sounding. So it's like they're taking, good job. This is I think a good example for people to understand in their awareness of their understanding of evolution. They're taking a good template and then they're reinterpreting it and then reorienting as a negative frequency. And I think that understanding of, okay, well, if we take this like rap song and then we make it a violin, we go, oh, okay, well, it actually is a good song and it has these beats that are harmonious and create this harmony towards it, but how it's applied is this negative frequency that's being projected. Well, then we can macro that out on basically everything on how the dark really operates and how these things try to attack us. They're having to use real geometries and real harmony, and they're taking harmony and and inverting it where there's elements of the harmony that are there, but it's overlaid with a false almost template that then masks its intentions there. So it's like part of, there's this there's this perception deception that occurs then on like these certain things that then I think can mess with people on a mass population. So I think that's just a good awareness. And I'll link to the artists that are good because I think Rufa de Soul's really good. I remember I mentioned that there's this one song where it's literally just about like love and positivity, but it makes these it's like done like a techno way. So it's like in almost like Moby, I guess. I don't know, like in a 90s sort of synth way, but they're making it like a fun song you could actually dance to. And that's not cringe, I feel like a lot of ways music is done now. It's like there's this frequency where they try to like um, anyway, there's such like there's so many egregores with music, but that's I guess that's such a longer conversation you could go into on the reality of music. Um, but then getting into then the um, the then how the dark actually does take the frequency and reinterpret it. I think just the awareness for people on how that actually occurs and who are because we talk about this whole prison planet and Mandela effects and I think reshaping your life. And most people, I think, get caught in either some sort of idea. What I would call it is like people get caught in these I guess you could call them like false ideas or these false egregores, these all these like artificial sentience or these other things that then we kind of perceive then as, artificial sentience and all these different realities and different beings essentially. But I think so many people get caught in how to interpret what they're seeing. So I think what I'm trying to get to is that the big question I think for you is how would then someone when they're getting slammed with certain attacks. They're getting slammed on, oh, okay, I'm freaking out about something very 3D, like, okay, money. And then they get caught in maybe like a money web, or they get caught in a 3D sort of web. They get caught in, oh, how am I looking right now? Like all these kind of 3D constructs, the architecture of how that's being projected onto you and what is for your awareness to understand to kind of like snap you out of that. Is that kind of clear? Is that how I'm describing it? Like how basically how does NPCs get out of becoming NPCs and become sovereign? I guess that's the surmised way of saying that.
Yeah, I mean, some NPCs, the non-player characters, I think there are all kinds, different types, and some are just unawakened humans, and they're not really programmed to be awakened, but they are a part of the problem because they are being harvested and they are being directed to, their focus is being directed to mainstream media and their agenda and their scripting and narratives. So they are a part of the problem. But then there's a whole bunch of NPCs which are just simply rendered and don't really exist at all. They're just like filler energy, not even energy that has no authority and no manifesting energy. So they're just there for us to follow. If 100 people are, you know, watching this news program, then we think, oh, we should too. So they're just for us to follow. But, if you're sovereign, you can think for yourself and you decide, yeah, I'm not even paying attention to it. So there's a lot of different kinds of NPCs, and some are here programmed or scripted by us and our spirit tree to help us, to guide us, to give us a great job, to help us do something or meet someone or, complete a mission or whatever. So some are good and some are bad and some are programmed by us. This matrix is filled with scripts that, we should be writing the scripts. The scripts should be authorized, and unfortunately, they're hijacked, and we can go off script, and that's when our life might fall apart, or we might suddenly become super rich and not, very greedy, or, whatever happens, you have to ask yourself, is this script for my highest good? Sometimes it's not always so clear. But if you're aware of the scripting and making sure that all your scripts are authorized, it's a bit of a journey to stay on the right scripts, part of the game we play.
I think that that's a huge, really good awareness, I think, to have the element of scripting and how, if we view it as a matrix and we view it as a video game, essentially, you're coming into a choose your own adventure type of story where we're not in a linear sort of path. We're in an open world format, and you can go choose what type of scripts you want, and understanding that higher self connection to where you're doing it for your highest good alone. And I think that then that's gonna segue into this because I really resonate and agree with you because I've always felt when people say the highest good for all, and when people are talking about this, um, I guess they almost perceive it as like a unified version of reality where there is some sort of like highest good for all and all the beings go to. I do view it as some sort of false light script that's being portrayed, I guess what you could call a new age, where it's a false light script where there's like this objective one way of doing things where it's the highest good for all, which would then mean, I think in their perception, they're thinking that it just means good for everything. But you really brought to my awareness and articulated to me well, where I always felt this kind of weird element about it, and there was something that it sounds correct, but then in practicality isn't. So I guess if you'd like to speak to that and kind of explain it, I think that that's a huge awareness for people to have. The highest good for yourself alone is such a powerful awareness, and it's been very popularized, I think, unfortunately, to a massive degree. Um, and I try to articulate it to people, but it seems like there's always like there's a they're resisting. I've seen this thing, but it's okay. So you want to do it yourself. But yeah, I guess if you just could go into that, like the highest good for yourself alone and understanding your own scripts and your own journey is kind of your thing. Like you're in control of yourself. This is you want your scripts for your highest good alone is very important. So if
Oh, it's crucial to sovereignty. It is a part of your sovereignty for my highest good alone. Because I am for peace, harmony, joy, abundance, sovereignty, and freedom. I'm for that, and I want that for you. So, for my highest good alone includes that. If I say, well, from my perspective anyway, if I say for the highest good for all, well, that includes all my dark expressions, that
Mhm.
includes evil, that
Yeah.
includes the neutral people that really can go either way. It includes the NPCs.
Hmm.
It includes everything. And the all has been hijacked. And so, hell no, you are the
Yeah.
boss of your source field. I am the current dominant sovereign, original source light authority. I'm the boss for my highest good alone. And it is always so, and never for the all, just for me, because I'm the boss of my source field. Luckily, I am for sovereignty and evolution and freedom and joy, peace, and abundance for those that want it. And, I offer it to entities that I'm dealing with if it's for my highest good. Sometimes it's not for my highest good to even offer it.
Mm,
Sometimes it's for my highest good just to send them off into a realm of stagnation, or not really stagnation, but a kind of limited evolution.
mm,
And so it's not forever though. None of my healing realms that I create, your higher self, your spirit tree can create all sorts of healing realms where you can send entities if it's for your highest good alone. And once you have the intent to remedy, resolve for your highest good alone all entities that you deal with, then you can send them to the place that's best for you, which is in fact best for them. Because, I am for evolution for all. I want everyone to have the opportunity to evolve and not be slammed. And, even I even have hell realms where I throw people. But these hell realms are not where you learn through a school of hard knocks and it's just perpetual pain, suffering, and torture. I have a protocol where I just make sure that it's, if they need a bit of a slap around, okay. Sometimes I learn the hard way quicker, okay. But I just make sure that uh, it's the least amount of pain and suffering required to get the job done. Because I don't believe that pain and suffering and torture um, is really beneficial and doesn't really teach us anything. For when we raise kids, we don't teach them with pain and suffering and torture. We teach them with love and forgiveness, and they learn better. But sometimes they need
yeah.
a slap around,
Yeah. And
they
I
don't
think
need a doormat, is
that's
what
a
I'm saying.
really powerful point too, where I think a lot of, I guess you could look at it from the Buddhist perspective and the Gnostic perspective that's kind of been portrayed onto, I guess what you could call the New Age, or I guess what you could call on just these elements of consciousness that exist where people believe that suffering needs to exist. People believe there are these people who believe that, oh, there's so again, kind of speaking to the beginning of what I was saying, like, oh, it's a part of our current matrix, therefore it needs to exist or it has a purpose. And
Yeah,
I
you know what? There is a lot of people that cannot imagine a world where there's no pain or suffering or negative drama. They can't even imagine a world of peace, joy, harmony. They just think how boring. They just think, oh, how boring that would be. Well, peace, harmony, sovereignty, freedom, there can be a lot of excitement in that kind of world and a lot of learning and a good amount of drama.
yeah, I
And some people are just like, I can't even imagine that, that's not good for me. So they have almost a mind block for peace, joy, harmony, sovereignty, and freedom because they think
yeah,
it would be too boring. Not at all. Not at all.
I absolutely agree with you on that because that's I think the philosophical like conclusion people make, but in reality you're still always consciousness is always still trying to in any form it's always trying to have a fun loving experience. It's trying to yearn for a joyful loving experience at the end of the day. It's consciousness is always trying to have that sort of sense to it. It's trying to have an expanding love frequency where you're just like laughing or you're with your family or you're just having a fun time, or you're in a state of love, you're a state of joy. That's what you're striving for. So to say that those things are this, oh, it's such a necessary thing. And I think the unfortunate thing is people then are unfortunately consenting or justifying things that then happen to them, and then they craft and they have to reorient this version of reality, this false yin yang symbolism, where they think it has to be this, oh, it's light and dark, it has to be a part of this world. But in reality, it's like, no, 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 no. But you are, everyone obviously would want to just be happy. Like that's what we're obviously, that's what everyone's trying to go do. So it doesn't make sense
Yeah,
that it
yeah, but I
needs to
just don't
exist.
want happiness. I want thrills and adventure and
Yeah,
excitement. That's my intent. It's not just sitting back being in a state of bliss like I'm high all the time. I mean, for
right,
me, that would be boring as hell. I want
right.
thrills, I want adventure, I want learning new experiences. And so
Yeah. No, I was,
this,
yeah,
yeah, a
I
lot
was
of
just
people
saying
just
like,
can't imagine it.
yeah,
Yeah.
not just like mundane happiness, but like you can be thrilling. You can go on a roller coaster. You can go, be in awe of something. You can go like slide down a waterfall and like jump into a spring and like that's still enjoyable and there's still a thrill to that. Um, I think but people I think are agreeing to um, trauma loops, entities that are creating these trauma loops that are trying to craft some sort of way in which that they don't heal. I think past events is kind of the,
Yeah, a lot of
you know,
people think they deserve some crap that hits them, or they get an injury, whatever. They
mhm,
think they deserve it with karma. That's all
right,
mind programming is, and it's not true.
right.
It's simply not true, in my opinion. I could be wrong. It's not true.
I think a huge element of it is I think that that's a huge element too, is the karma delusion and the karma, how karma really works. I think that that's pretty powerful because we've talked to a little bit this about how there's karma dumping and how you can, karma is a thing in a sense, but it's not in the way that, again, you interpret it, where people are perceiving it like there's this objective law, I guess you could say, this like this completely objective law where, oh, I then have to suffer in this way, or I did this in a past life, so I have to suffer all these things. Like, it's not exactly like that. You can experience traumas from a past life and you have to then heal them in this life, but it's not like in the way that is portrayed. It's more about, I think how you're saying it, where it's just like, and I think we're saying the same thing. I'm just expanding on, it's really like you can have had those traumas, but it's not like a punishment in the same way. It's not like in this, you have to be forced, like, you have to be beaten down and forced and suffered in this way. The karma is really more of a consciousness perception of how you're existing in the matrix and what you're holding on to, not really a like anvil that's been forced upon you by some sort of like thing.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people think, karma is a punishment.
Hmm.
And then what happens? They get punished. Karma is not a punishment if we're aware of the ability we have to undo bad decisions. We can use time travel and changing timelines to acknowledge bad actions and revoke them and undo them and rescript them to joy, peace, harmony, sovereignty, and freedom. And as we do that, any bleed through pain or suffering that we feel from that experience of that expression of ours or that entanglement, that's one way we can self-heal. And it's one way we can get rid of karma because these, all pain and suffering, injuries, bad things that happen to us, it can either just be we're going off script, script dumping, karma dumping, or it can be our true karma, one of our expressions or one of our soul shards in an entity, a genetically engineered entity, did something wrong, something bad. And with this awareness, we can have the intent to undo it, revoke it. And then we can, as we do that, we change a timeline to where that didn't happen. And the proof of changing a timeline or correcting a timeline is a yawn. So when we yawn, it's a sign of a timeline correction. So whenever you're doing inner work, I revoke this or I revoke that, or I'm healing this or reclaiming that, sit with it for a while, do some breathing, and then if you yawn, possibly with a few tears, a teary-eyed yawn, then that is a timeline correction. And that's true and efficient and permanent inner work.
Hmm.
And if you don't yawn, you might be looping back and maybe it didn't really heal. You think it did, but it didn't. Or there is something further that you have to acknowledge or take action on. So, always pay attention to the yawns or sneezes. A sneeze for me can indicate a release of restraints.
Yeah. And the funny thing that I do is like burping. Burping can be another validation key, or yeah, sneezing, coughing. Crying's obviously usually been like extremely powerful. Um, deep, usually deep meditations. Those are the ones that are like huge. Or also, this just happened too, like when my sternum cracks. I know like that's a huge indicator for me. Then like this little bone right here, when this pops, it's like this huge, like again, another expansion, heart expansion sort of moment. And kind of
Yeah,
finding
and I
those
think
cues.
each individual can have different tells.
Hmm.
For me, and I think the way I work, in a session, if my client doesn't yawn, I haven't done my job and I'll keep going until I get the yawn. Then they've made the timeline correction. But I think this might be true for most people. However, we are all unique and different, and you can probably program yourself, your own skin suit, to give you an indication or a tell of, when you hear the truth or when you have succeeded in a healing or a loving detachment. You can program your own skin suit, but I do think a yawn is pretty standard.
Yeah.
Who knows?
No, I agree with you. I do that with
Mm.
my clients now too. I make sure usually if I get a yawn, it's like, okay, if I've gotten a couple yawns, then I know then okay, we've made some progress here. At least there. That's usually like the markers. So I definitely agree with you. Once you've made it to that like threshold, there could be other stuff there, but that's a very good indicator of, and especially if it's very synchronistic with something I'm feeling and it's healing and it's like okay, and then they get the yawn trigger, it's like okay, boom, there's been a healing that's occurred, and then timeline correction, and then you're on the right path there. So I yeah, I resonate with that too, and I always make sure with my clients now, it's like they got a yawn. And I think then another deep kind of philosophical question or awareness, I think it's a big one, but the origin or the nature of good and evil and kind of this your aspects that are evil and the ones that have fallen into darkness or the ones that are in light, the nature of kind of evil and this almost as a framework reference, I see it as yeah, you can just I guess just I want you can just speak to it. Just the framework of good and evil in these aspects that are kind of that are fallen into them or the ones that are good aspects and just in the nature of evil itself and the nature of good.
Well, I don't know much about the nature of evil. I do meet some evil, pure evil sometimes, and I negotiate with it. And, I just hold respect for it. And I don't hate it. I just allow it. And then sometimes I'll just allow it to leave. out of my reality.
Mm.
And often it's pretty okay with that. And some negative groups, um, some of them are just have just forgotten who they are, but it's not the divine time for me to do anything about that. And so I come up against these negative groups, just assholes basically. And sometimes they'll ask me to do a mission for them, like, we created this big predator to attack you, and actually it's now attacking us. Can you get rid of it, please? I'm like, okay, so I'll actually help them get rid of that big predator because why not? Because I can. And often that predator is a genetically engineered entity carrying the soul shards of us. So I get to reclaim some energies. And often that predator is, us includes our bad expressions in that negative group. So a couple of people in that negative group will also get a healing. So yeah, sometimes I work with negative groups and help them and in loving detachment, and it's not divine time. It's not the timing for me to, go after them and heal them. So I just let them be. And it's really important, divine timing. It's really important to follow the divine time. I mean, I just cannot stress that enough. If you push something and it's not the right time, you can make things worse. And so, sometimes I do that. I still do that sometimes because the timelines are so screwed up. I'm not getting a good, clear visual, or I'm not getting a good, clear intuition of is it true divine time or not? And I'll just go ahead and heal it or fix it. And yeah, wrong thing to do. So I'll have to go back and undo that. So I don't always do the right thing. I make mistakes. Fortunately, I can undo them as well. But none of us are perfect. We're all just doing our best. And it's really important to understand that as well. If, you're feeling the heavy energies, sometimes you don't get a clear message. Sometimes you don't get it, you can't intuit anything, or you're getting, oh, it's this person, it's that person, or it's this thing, or it's that thing, and you just get bombarded with all these different possibilities, and you don't know what's real, because something is really uh, got hooked into you. And this happens. This is a big slam. So in these cases, I just step back, take a breath, and I go, okay, I don't care who you are. You could be this person that I hate or this person that I like. Whoever you are, I am operating from a place of oneness. There is only unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness if you are an authorized interaction for me.
Mm.
If my inner self has authorized you for me to deal with, then I am dealing with you. Don't care who you are. You could be him, you could be her, you could be whatever. And from a place of oneness, unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, no judgment. And I'll take a few breaths and breathe and then just try and bring calmness to myself, because I'd be like, oh my God, it's her, it's him. So I'll just try and get to a calm state. Breathing, I'll just walk around the house or go for a walk. And then whatever it is, will actually go, oh yeah, actually, okay, yeah, I trust you now. I trust you. Okay. It's actually, this is what I am and who I am, and I'm ready to take your offer of uh evolution.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
that.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just,
I was just going to
yeah.
add this very important point too that I don't want to also forget because it's so powerful. The difference between killing entities and also healing them, I think, is a very powerful thing, and not in the fighting sort of loops when I initially would get slammed with entities, killing them versus actually having what you're talking about, which is then going through a healing process with them. Because once the entity actually heals, it can then evolve or, it can be dealt with and
Oh,
we can get
once you
to,
heal an
yeah.
entity, and we have innate protection. Most things that slam you, They're carrying one of your soul shards or the soul shard of one of your many expressions, not all human. You know, most things that enter your source field, you're awesome. We're all super, super awesome. The only thing that can get into our source field is a version of us because we're so awesome. So don't kill anything. Have a no-kill policy, but on the very, very, very rare or odd occasion, check if you don't get karma for it. You can kill something by sending it back into the galactic central sun to be recycled.
Hmm.
So no energy is abandoned.
Hmm.
But have an awareness of how you should kill someone. Don't just kill them and throw them somewhere because something else will revive it and it'll be back in the game.
Yeah,
So, a remedy resolution uh, gets a remedy resolution forever and it will not come back. And you get to reclaim that piece part of you.
absolutely. I think that that's a very huge point on the the nature of things where if no energy is abandoned or forgotten, when you have that in your awareness and template to use, that's so powerful because I think a lot of healers are unfortunately basically killing things, and then the dark can then almost exactly how you said it, revive it and then use it as a pawn for whatever agenda it wants.
No, no,
Because
when what they're doing,
Mhm.
I know some YouTubers that get out their big sword and slash and kill stuff and think it's so cool. What they're doing, they're killing versions of themselves. And these dark versions of themselves are helping them to kill, to perpetuate karma, to perpetuate the energy of harvesting.
Mhm.
That's what they're doing. And when you kill something, you're not reclaiming anything. So these people that are killing are not reclaiming their stolen energies. They're not upgrading themselves. They're not getting back their abilities and what was lost. So they are in a state of stagnation, of absolute stagnation. No win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's just a powerful awareness because then yeah, you're not upgrading, you're not healing, you're not
No.
you're not being in a state of awareness. And then yeah, you stagnate, and then and when you heal it you get more super abilities and you get more awareness, and more things come online, so it's like
Yeah.
you want to
And
be
I know
healing,
this. I know this because early in my journey, I was killing everything. And I got really good at it too. I could take out a bunch of reptilians in 3 seconds. I was so good at it. But I was always getting attacked, constantly attacked, in a constant state of anxiety. But I was really, really good at killing. But I was in stagnation. I wasn't earning anything. And I was asking for help and higher self trades. Yeah, help was coming, but what was I trading? I don't know. Soul shards. And so, the beginning of my journey was brutal. I was doing everything wrong, guided by this psychic I was doing, paying for sessions, paying a lot of money to have sessions with this guy who was teaching me to kill.
hmm
And then I was just always getting slammed and attacked. And so I would always have to call him and he would help me kill and we'd go on killing sprees. And meanwhile, I'm paying him. So a part of my journey was this stupidity. And this is why I know not to do it because I did it myself. So,
Mhm.
yeah, been there, done that. Doesn't work. Take my word for it. And healing, it's much easier to kill, takes 3 seconds.
Mhm.
When you heal, it could take half an hour or all day.
Yeah.
But then once that's healed, you reclaim your energies, what was stolen, you take it out of the game. And these energies, we are the gods. We have authorities, so many authorities in the earth grid, in the Akashic libraries, in free energy, in the stones, in Tartaria. We have so many
Mhm.
authorities throughout our realm. And as we take them back, we restore, we reclaim, and bring back our world of magic because it's our authorities that created it, and it's our authorities that were stolen to corrupt it. So the only way to win is to heal yourself and your dark expressions. And we've all got them. And some people are really shocked, when I say to them, oh, you know, I'll have a client and, she'll complain of a sore shoulder or something. And I'm going, well, it's a dark expression of yours. And she's like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I think people can be very
They don't
resistant.
believe it. And I'm like,
People can
yes,
be,
yes, in
yeah,
this expression, you are a lovely lady. You're lovely. You're so kind. You give the shirt off your back to everyone you meet, and well done, you. You rescue dogs, loving you. But you've got dark expressions, and they have a real hard time to believe it.
yeah,
Well, the reason why you're good in this expression is because that carries the energy, a higher light vibration, so that you can trap these dark expressions of yourself and heal them. That's why you're good in this expression. In this expression, if you're a bad guy, you're greedy, you're stealing from people, and you're just a no gooder, um, yeah, you won't be able to heal yourself because you'll be at the same vibration as your dark entities. So the reason why
yeah,
we're good and honest and we help people when we can, but and this brings the next, service to self or service to others. And it's always service to others. It's always service to others. Everyone's talking about service to others. And I'm like, hell no, hell no. Service to self. You take care of yourself. You heal yourself. You reclaim your energies. You are the center of your universe.
yeah,
And once you heal yourself and you get good at it, then you can start healing others. And then that's service to others. When you have healed yourself, when you have acknowledged that you are the God that needs, attention because our souls are very fractured. So service to self is not being selfish and only living for yourself. That's greed. That's being an asshole. Service to self is servicing yourself, healing yourself, reclaiming your energies in order that you may get good at it and then start healing others and going on missions for the realm. So service to others, yes, it's wonderful. But service to others, what are you going to do? Help the NPCs, the non-player characters. Help yourself first. I can't stress this enough. Help yourself first. And then you find this beautiful balance between service to self and service to others. This beautiful balance where you're healing yourself
hmm,
and healing others and going on missions for the realm. There's this beautiful balance. But if you're just service to others, no. Work on yourself, reclaim your own energies, acknowledge the God that you are. And you are a fractured soul with dark expressions. So level up.
yeah,
I can't say it any plainer than that, and I'm not
mhm,
sugarcoating anything. Look
yeah.
look around, look at our realm, and it's us that fix it. And this is how we fix it by healing ourselves first. So, looking at doing inner work and taking care of yourself first is not greed or selfishness. It's what you have to do in order to help others.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think when you really go within and then have that awareness understanding, that's when you can actually then heal other people and go on missions, like you say. Like then you'll just be called, you'll be around someone, and you're like, okay, well, this needs a healing. And then you can actually do that in your unconscious or consciously, how we do it, where stuff will be presented into our reality, or something will come into, like, you'll just be on your You'll just something will happen in your day, and then some person needs a healing. That's how you healing yourself. Those is so important. It's always like the thing in the airplane where it's like, okay, put your mask on first, and then you can help someone else. Like you have to be able to put your mask on and
Exactly.
have
And in the
oxygen.
meantime, yeah,
Otherwise,
in the
yeah.
meantime, as you're servicing yourself, healing yourself, in the meantime, be kind.
Hmm.
Be kind. Be kind to people. And if you can help someone with minimal effort or in a way that is okay for you, then help them.
Hmm.
But don't make your life about helping others. That's just being a do-gooder. And meanwhile, you're not helping yourself and you're in stagnation. So be kind, help where you can. This is what I do. If I see someone in need and I can, I will. I'll help. But my main focus is healing myself, reclaiming my energies to become more super awesome than I already am, so that then I can do real healing and then I can help others. And I do. I've done a lot
Yeah.
of work on myself over the years. I'm at a stage now where I give sessions to clients and I help others. But it was only after many years of helping myself, learning how to heal myself first, which is really important. And I think it's a little bit dangerous to help others when you can't even help heal yourself because you entangle
Definitely.
with them. You entangle with others. You don't know the darkness. You've got to earn the ability to decloak. You've got to earn these abilities to deal with predators and possessions and hauntings and all sorts of things. These are all mystery schools and things you have to earn to help others, but you've got to get good at it for yourself first. So I'm on a rant, but I'll shut up now.
No, it's good. It's good. I think it's so important for
Yeah.
people to understand that they have to do, what's colloquially called shadow work or inner work, healing that and really having that awareness. And and I don't think I've shared this story with you, but it's very similar. It's in the same vein and very powerful because and it's a tough story for me because it was so hard and traumatizing, but I do feel it's necessary because it's such a powerful story that it needs to be said. So when I was about like I don't know, no, I do it's 15. I was probably 15, just turning 16. It's like a decade ago, right?
Oh, I was going
Um,
to say what last week, but anyway, okay.
I know, yeah. I know, yes, yeah, it's yeah, a year ago, yeah, no. Um but so yeah, no, a decade. So like we're looking at like a decade ago. So there was I was really into the whole like PETA thing, like the whole like oh, and I the whole like the animals, like oh, animals are suffering, like donate to this animal
Oh
shelter
my
thing.
God, I got into all those causes too.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So and
I
it's
got
just like
sucked
oh
into
my
all that as
God.
well. Yeah. Been
And I
there,
saw
done that.
this horrible video of this these like fur farms, and it was like really traumatizing, and it was so and there's magic in element in that because it was a tanuki fur farm. And it was, so that was, and it was like, so it's like, oh shit, you see how they get killed and stuff, and it's horrible.
So
Um,
tanuki are like wombats or beavers or foxes,
they're like raccoon dogs. They're in,
raccoon dogs.
yeah, they're like,
Right.
if you see the Japanese like little statues outside restaurants, they have the big testicles too. And they're like usually very fat, and they, kind of like in the, just cultural tradition, they have the big earlobes and stuff. It's like good wealth and stuff. So like wealth, prosperity, and then then they're like their fur has magic too. So like the cloaking ability of their fur, all these different other things. So and ironically, it's a fur farm. So, this was then a couple years ago. I went to just it's called like the Self-Realization Temple. It's like Yogananda's temple thing in California, and that's probably one of the best places I would say to visit right outside of LA. It's a very beautiful temple. And I think the Yogananda guy is even buried there. So it's a cool spot. And when I was meditating there and I was just starting to get into spirituality, I was coming from a very philosophical lens and I was like, but I was getting all these messages. And when I was there, I was like shaking and there was like just this super emotional thing I was getting into. And first time I went into what I would call like what people call 5D, but really just the psychic realm. And I saw that event and it kept looping in my mind. I had the image of the raccoon, unfortunately, it was always looped in my mind. And I was thinking, okay, I was asking about it, like, why does this happen, and what's going on here? And the huge download element that I got was the forgiveness element. You have to forgive and let go. And when I did that, and I don't even again know everything that I fully even did because it was still probably my most 5D or powerful experience because when I did that and I forgave the person who, kills the raccoon and stuff, the letting go of that and the reclaiming of soul fractal was so huge that it was like nothing else I've ever experienced. And that's where I really got my time codes back in. But the point of it is the element of forgiveness and having that love frequency, understanding that unconditional love from light source, the creator that you are, but the everything that is in this matrix, right? Like really getting out of the 3D narrative and having that experience. And there's this little pond you can go walk out after like they have service. And I remember then seeing like a turtle and a crane and the water, and everything became in like this beautiful transcendent experience, like nothing I've ever experienced, where it was what I think you always reference as true divine time, where you're in true divine time and everything's in true divine time. And I believe that temple is in a perfect state, a perfect example of it's a state in which that is in true divine time, where I experienced through the animals that were there, because there's like all these cranes and turtles there. They have like a turtle pond, and so really 5D stuff going on here. So they have like a turtle pond and like these cranes here. So it was like all this true divine time freedom energy that came in. And a funny thing too is the fire that happened in Los Angeles, it didn't hit that area. Like they had all those mountains. It's by all those mountains that were burning. Those are kind of sensationalized over the summer. So, and it didn't hit them. So it's another example of like it was in a true divine time state. And that experience, again, the element of the forgiveness, letting go. And I think my higher self just kind of just fully clocked in and forgave and reclaimed all those soul fractals of time and freedom and stuff. And that element is so much more powerful, where I was struggling and trying to, and I had all these dark expressions of wanting to um stop those, like really just like, you create all these anger expressions of all this trauma and karma you have with these of seeing that video, but that's really a video that's connected to multidimensional things. But the simplified way of explaining it is once that was forgiven in that moment, it was then forgiven in all moments. And then there was a huge upgrade from that and a huge awakening from that. So, as hard as and resistant as it can be, the forgiveness element really is the key in going into those traumas, forgiving, letting go, and untangling yourself from those um, experiences and everything,
It's so important
yeah,
to be aware of this. This is a really good point you bring up, and your experience, sharing your experience is wonderful because sometimes I have, I can feel a trauma and I can't identify it, but it's so deep. And so I'll just start, almost like doom scrolling, which I love. Always something pops up. So, I'll start just going on YouTube or doom scrolling, whatever. And, I'll come across some elephant sanctuary videos or PETA videos,
yeah,
dog rescue, animal rescue. And I'll watch them and it will make me cry. And that's the release I needed. And so all of these rescue organizations, they really do have this wonderful purpose, not only, of course, of rescuing and helping the animals, uh, but they're posting their information so we can access all the good work that they do and help us to heal from our trauma by crying. Because sometimes you just need a good cry. And how do you cry? You know, any animal kind of animal abuse, and I'm in tears.
Hmm.
So it's a great way to give yourself a little self-healing when you need it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think something also you could definitely speak to too is like how we are the animals and how our matrix and our world is how everything is us. So then the animals in certain areas and continents and how animals are experiencing something or traumas they've gone through in you just did an amazing video about the beavers in like the 1800s and how the fur trade, looping it back to fur, but like how the fur trade, how that all occurred and how that is a synchronistic metaphysical manifestation that we're connected to, even though people don't in a 3D way perceive it like that, but the energy from there is connected to us and healing that occurred then and how that magic was used was a really fantastic video. And I think I just also obviously resonated because I had the whole like fur thing too there and I have the entanglements and untangling there too. So there's a lot to reclaim but how we're connected to stuff like the elephants, how we're connected to the whales, and even of everything, of the fungus and the trees and the rocks, all everything that we think sometimes even don't even perceive as inorganic, we're connected to in a we are the topography itself in a sense. Our expressions are kind of like expressed through them, if if that kind of if I'm explaining it correctly.
Yeah, yeah. And one way you can really help the elephants, of course, there's all these wonderful rescue organizations that do a lot of great work in our, let's say, 3D realm in our density. But if you really want to help the elephants or the whales, go dimensional.
Hmm.
Go to your dark expressions or your elephant expression and heal them. And it might take months or even a year, or maybe just a day. But, I have an elephant protocol. You can adapt that or edit that for a whale protocol. Just do your best. But when you go dimensional, interdimensional, you're bringing back the species. You're, sorry, let me rephrase that. You're doing your bit to bring back the species
Hmm.
in their freedom and sovereignty, not into zoos or farming or hunting and abuse.
Right.
When you heal yourself, when you heal your elephant DNA, when you heal your lion DNA, this is how another way you can really help the animals as well as doing your bit in this 3D realm, but you can go interdimensional as well. And that's also a great healing, very profound.
I think then that's the next layer of healing that interdimensionally. And this is I think a deep philosophical question that I haven't, I guess, asked you. And one note before I forget too is that, people forget that trees are actually farmed. Your background's reminding me that trees are farmed now, for like Christmas and stuff, and trees are growing at a younger age and then they cut them down. And, they found out that trees actually do have like this the mature trees teach the young trees how to grow. So it's important that, we keep the forests and there's a symbiotic relationship with them. And I think then too, then this is then the next question I have. And I have definitely a theory I've looked into, psychically about it, but the nature of farming and the nature of what is occurring there, because I perceive that when our matrix got altered, that became I, I don't want to say necessary, but an element of something that happened because there's the hunter-gatherer tribes, but then farming was introduced and the concept of farming. So I don't know if you've ever looked into that, that kind of element of human history and seeing like this element of farming things, an element of cultivation and of because essentially even in plants, we're manipulating plants to then be edible because, all the fruits in nature haven't been really edible for the most part, but then they've been, farmed and cultivated, manipulated. Like even bananas or something like have been farmed. So, I don't know. Have you looked? Because I'm very interested on the nature of like nutrition and health and like okay, where these hunter-gatherer tribes and in America we've killed off all the mammoths as an example, and that's like those were our elephants. So that but that was so that there's all these interesting like kind of things in human history. Again, human history is a very Mandela effect sort of thing, and kind of connecting that to this Mandela effect of are these versions and templates that have been placed in our human history of ways of farming and ways of hunter gathering and how sort of nutrition's been created. But I think there was a time when that maybe didn't exist in a sense. Do you kind of see where I'm going with that sort of thing? Like how the nature of farming sort
Yeah.
of occurred and the manipulation of
How, well,
plants and stuff.
I'm not sure. I think a lot of our history is a lie. I mean, were there
Mhm.
hunter-gatherers? I don't know. I believe that humans were an engineered species and we appeared on the scene highly conscious. So I don't think we were ever, you know, hunter-gatherers.
Like they say. Yeah, that was a very leading question. I knew where it was going because it
So,
was like
I
no,
don't know, but
it's
I don't, yeah.
because
I mean, I
obviously
eat
yeah,
meat.
yeah.
I'm not a vegetarian.
Hmm.
I did try it for a couple of years. It didn't work out for me very well, probably because I'm not a good cook. But um, wouldn't it be nice not to eat meat? I mean,
Yeah.
that's in my world of magic. We're not killing animals and eating them. We're very happy with fruits and plants and
Well, I don't think we
um
need to eat. Is I think my
so yeah,
theory
I
is that I
don't
don't think food is actually an actual
it's a
necessary.
weight.
I think I think it's a weight because how I've perceived it in my experience of nutrition, it does seem to be that um, it's become a part of our matrix, but it's been like a false Mandela effect. It's one of the it's I think it's the deepest layer of the Mandela effect in terms of how our matrix works in a sense where I do think it's very vital to nutrition. I think it's very vital to nutrition in a sense, but I think that there's a way we can reach where we don't have to exist in that sort of um, plane per se. And I think the narrative, and
Mm.
I totally agree with you on the narrative of humans and hunter gatherers. But I mean, there are hunter gatherers in places like Australia, though. Those like the native people are hunter gatherers in that sense, right? So,
Still,
still, yeah, still, right?
some
So,
of them still, yeah.
yeah, some
Yeah.
of them. And in Africa, obviously, too. They're still hunter gatherers. So, but I agree with you. The narrative, I think that was created has been um, has been altered. I think it's one of the when the realm sort of we could call broke. I think that was one of it's kind of like a weird Mandela. Like it once the realm broke, and if you want to look at it in a chronology way, I think that's one of the first things that happened where then everything kind of we didn't have a fuel source of just ether essentially. And then there was this way of, okay, well, we can then take light from other things. So then if we just kill it and eat it, then we can take light from it, I think um, is essentially what I think happened. We haven't
Yeah,
really
I get
discussed this.
very conflicting reads when I read into the history of our food, where we hunter-gatherers, were we created, were we Neanderthals, I get a lot of conflicting visions and information.
Hmm.
So I don't know the truth.
Hmm.
And I question if we were ever hunter-gatherers, even though they still exist today, is, were those hunter-gatherers like the Aboriginals in Australia? What were they before? Is hunter-gathering a corruption of what they were before? They were breatharians before. I don't know.
And I think
And
that's, yeah, yeah. I
I
think
don't know, and I get lots of conflicting information and visions, and I'm tuning into all these different timelines that are like a bird's nest. They're a dog's breakfast. They're very entangled. So I don't know what the answer
that.
is there. And I still think about it from time to time. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
can't
I mean,
help you there.
it was a very
In the
leading.
meantime, I'm just
Yeah.
eating a hamburger. I'm eating hamburgers and I'm eating meat
No,
and yeah.
no, that's the thing, because I mean, I'm very into organ meats, but I think actually what really did happen was, if we're looking at the Akashic grid, and we can kind of speak to that too, I guess that's kind of the ending. Um, that's kind of, it was a leading question to see. I wanted to pick your brain on that, but that's what I saw in terms of the fake narrative of human history and how it's been in
Mm.
terms of the fake Akashic. I think it's been reframed that way, to where that's one of the final pieces of our um, matrix necessity. Because if we can just become exactly like breatharians, that narrative from human history, and cultivating and manipulate, because think about it too, we're manipulating genetics, we're manipulating animals, we're manipulating plants. All these things in terms of food were a manipulation distortion that were created around them. So I think that's one of the key things from the Akashic, that I believe that is a version of truth, where we then were framed in this false human history of then like hunting the bison, or hunting all these like mammoths and stuff like that, and how all these then animals, like keystone species like mammoths, which are very close to elephants, were then taken out of the game essentially, and then we were
Yeah,
forced.
supposedly because we ate them. But was it just a pure agenda to get rid of a keystone species? I mean, were we
Yeah,
eating them? I don't know.
I think
I
so. I
don't
think
know.
in like a version of a Mandela effect, where they were. Yeah, but I think the history of America is such. That's like another topic. I think I'm looking very much at America, but the yeah, I think, but generally across cultures, I think that was one of the ways in which that the density here was then like cubed and compressed. Was
Oh.
once it broke, it then, the only way to survive, because if you then break a fuel source, it's like, okay, the only way to survive is then taking light from then somewhere else. And if you view nutrition as like light, like from the sun or from water, all these things, because there's dead water versus like crystalline water. If you have water from a natural spring, that's very different than like dead distilled water. So it's like, if you're viewing nutrition as light, there's a different frequency on the planet where we don't have to eat. Like that's a you're just having a cake or something, or a souffle pancakes for the taste of it. It's not like it's you have to eat these things to survive. And I've
I know. And to be honest, I used to stress about the food I'm eating and, drinking alcohol. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That'll let in the demons. And, or a hamburger, that's not good. Can't be eating life itself. And I was kind of stressing out about it and conflicted and confused. And then one of the biggest missions I ever did back in 2020, um, I did after a hamburger and two martinis. And it was some of my best work and most profound work where I went up against a bunch of dark magicians at the White House. And they were linked to the reset that we're in. So I did some of my best work, after having had meat and alcohol. And so then I realized it's all consciousness. At the end of the day, there's no shame, blame, or guilt for what we do or don't do. It's all consciousness. However, having said that, I do feel better and I do work better interdimensionally if I have less meat and no alcohol and no sugar.
Yeah.
I feel better. I have clearer intuition. But shock horror, I'm not perfect.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's one of the things here where we're also it's a weird thing where it's like I think the meat does ground you and keep you in density, but I agree with you where I feel more open in a sense where I'm not eating meat, but then at the same time it's like it's the level of nutrition you get from meat on a 3D level is you are experiencing this plane. Like you have to have, to have any sort of dessert usually requires tons of things oh, like alcohol is then all bad and then we have to shut it down. It's like, well, then the only reason you're shutting it down is because there's a dark expression that isn't healed. Because if you're healed, then you're fine and nothing's going to come through. That's the real truth, I think, on that. Because everyone, when we're like, oh, this substance is bad and don't drink this, the only, and ironically too, like with alcohol, funny enough, like the only reason that I think people get taken by it is they're really confronted with these dark expressions for real. Like it's a way for a 3D person to they drink and then they're confronted with their dark expressions. That something's going to percolate and come up, um, and
And
then you're
also,
going to have to deal with
I
it.
do think,
They're going to be on it.
low frequency food, the cakes, the candy, the alcohol, it does carry a low frequency and it can lower our frequency.
Hmm.
Um, or if we're in true divine time, maybe we get help somehow to raise our frequency and do what we need to do. I don't know. But all I know is that the shame, blame, and guilt of having chocolate and a glass of wine is worse than the actual chocolate and glass of wine.
I 100% agree with that.
The
A hundred
shame, blame,
percent.
and
Yeah.
guilt where I'm just like, oh crap, I wish I didn't do that. Why did I do that? Bad decision.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, okay. And at the end of the day, I volunteered to incarnate into this realm. I don't know why I did it. I'm kicking myself for doing it, but I'm here, I'm stuck here. So guess what? I'm damn well going to enjoy the food for now.
Yeah. So then, do you feel like I think we covered a lot of good topics.
We did, and I
Yeah.
think there's more for next time.
There's more for next time. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Anne, so much for being here. And hopefully, a lot of people got huge awareness. And remember, there's only unconditional love and forgiveness. And you're in true divine time for your highest good alone. And
From my highest good alone.
yeah, from my
Absolutely.
highest
Thank
good
you for having
alone.
me on.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anne. Bye bye. So, yeah.
Basically, if anyone out there is going to say, for the highest good for all, I am the all. And that gives me authority to override whatever you're doing for my highest good. So thank you very much for being so unsovereign. I get my way. Luckily for you, I am for sovereignty, freedom, evolution, peace, joy, and harmony. But a lot of people are not, and they're included in the all, and they may thwart or if there's enough of them against you, they can override your all because the majority has more energy, packs more energy.
Hmm.
So for the highest good for all, in my opinion, is never good.
I have a crazy story actually to tell you because the one time I'll keep this in the recording too. The one time that I was doing a session on someone and they refused to say that, I subsequently got horribly sick. And I was attacked more than but to a physical level. I wasn't at the point where I'm getting you get psychically attacked all the time, but I was physically sick, which is different. Where I
Well,
was
that was for their
yeah.
highest good or for the highest good for all to take you out of the game because you're a big major player.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of evil or negative entities there that it was for their highest good to shut you down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can just if anyone says that to you, for my highest good for the highest good for all, just say, well, I revoke that and I am not a part of that collective. I am not a part of your collective of the all. Blocked,
Yeah.
revoked. I'm in my own reality bubble and I'm for my highest good alone.
Yeah.